All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Simplifying Network Automation with NetGrew. I'm your host, NetGrew, and today we have Oksana Sanikova as our guest. Oksana, welcome. I'm super excited to have
Hey
you
everyone.
here. Hi. So, could you tell folks a bit about yourself, about your background? What's your current role? You're working at Cisco on the security BU. So could you tell us a bit about yourself
Yep,
and what do you do?
yep. Hi Adrian, hi everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to be part of this great session because I do love to do hands-on, and we will do some hands-on today. So we'll build some stuff today together. I've been with Cisco for 15 years. My current role for the past 6 years was leading programmability initiatives for our security portfolio. So anything related to API, infrastructure as code for our security products, and XDR and XDR automation as well, the low to no code automation component of our XDR platform. So that all comes into kind of like my area of expertise. So yeah, what my team is doing, we build stuff for customers. We create features that don't exist. We create integrations that don't exist, and we build automations. And yeah, that's what we do to prove the value of our products and their capabilities and how they drive outcomes for our customers.
All right. So definitely I'm gonna have some of the folks on your team join this stream. I love to have some of them because what you're doing and your team is doing is really what this stream is all about, right? Automation, and especially with the security angle to it, I think it's gonna work really well for this. So tell us a bit about how you got into automation, right? Like why, and what was left before Cisco, and like what's your journey? Because I mean, we all had a journey, right, towards automation, and how did you
Yep.
get here?
So I've been always in cybersecurity. I graduated with a degree in cybersecurity, and before Cisco, I was working with the local service provider and doing some network automation and customization. We were automating getting SNMP trap information from
Mhm.
custom built sensors for like fire sensors. Uh, Network sensors as well, like, from different telemetry. That was mainly preliminary Cisco equipment, and that was the time when I had to learn by doing, learn Perl, PHP, work with different open source tools like Nagios, Cacti, RRD tools, learn S- S- um, SNMP protocol from scratch, and all of that. So that was a lot of fun. And then I joined Cisco, and I switched to networking and
Mhm.
learned the product portfolios and all the technologies. I got CCIE, so I kind of moved away from programmability completely. And I did various different roles, but always in cybersecurity. I worked with partners, I was consultant, was architect. I worked in enablement, in training, and then I came back to take on this role when we started to see the rise of APIs, and they realized the need for showing customers the value of APIs and build some automations. I got this role, and I keep learning by doing since then. So like that's why I'm so passionate about this role.
Yeah, so I always see you at Cisco Live, right? That's where I kind of see you presenting, and I mean, you're doing a fantastic job over there, by the way. I've seen you get distinguished
Thank you.
speaker and everything. So uh,
So yeah,
that's
I'll be
kind of
coming to next Cisco Live, the Cisco Live US. My sessions got accepted, so we will have a session about threat hunting with APIs. My
nice.
favorite top. Yeah, so that will be there. We also do customer sessions like test drives.
Hmm.
where we teach customers to build automations themselves. And that's actually something that we will be doing today, showing you how you can build your own workflows with XDR automation, right, Adrian?
Right, right, right. And yes, we were just talking about you coming down to San Jose to actually, teach some partners and customers here in at the end of April. So looking forward to that, collaborating more closely. Um, and cool. So you got your session in Vegas accepted. I see here a user says great talk at Cisco Live US last year on
Well,
LinkedIn.
thank you.
So at least it was not only me enjoying your session; it was somebody else too. Cool. So is that going to be in the DevNet zone? It's a DevNet session,
Yes.
the one for Vegas.
Yeah, we
Nice.
have a
Cool.
workshop. There will be a completely new workshop about using Duo APIs for MSP use cases. And there's going to be a classroom session on threat hunting with APIs and looking through different API capabilities
Okay,
to
so it's going to be
automate
like a
around.
workshop, the threat hunt.
Yeah.
All right, nice. So you have like your 12 laptops, whatever's going to, or maybe 20. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's like
We'll
really
see.
hands-on threat hunting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So for today, right, we were talking about XDR. Tell us a bit about Cisco XDR because I know the product has gone through some rebranding. Um, what's Cisco XDR? What does it do for us?
Do you mind if I start showing it?
No, no, yeah. Let's start sharing screen and yeah. I'm
Yeah.
a fan of showing hands-on explaining too. So let's see.
Yep. So I'm not going to show any slides, obviously. I'm going to show you the product as I like to stay with the product and buy the product and show you what that actually is versus just telling you what that is. So XDR is our extended detection and response platform that consolidates telemetry from multiple different sources. It's vendor agnostic. We take telemetry from different sources that are third party, right? Different endpoint detection and response vendors, the firewall vendors, and network telemetry, NetFlow, you name it. And then what XDR platform does, it correlates all of the data and it allows to produce prioritized incidents, um, chaining events from multiple different sources into attack chain, telling you exactly what happened. And you can see here some incidents based on the attack kill chain stages, right where they are. And I have one incident right here that I can show as well that came in a while ago, and that was generated by I used Caldera for attack simulation, and I was using Mimikatz to run some attacks on the Windows platforms, and you can see that there was Mimikatz dump credentials. So there were total 11 indicators detected, 44 observables, 6 different assets involved in this attack, and you can dive into detections that are coming from secure endpoint at this point, in this example, but that could be CrowdStrike or eight, like another vendor data source or multiple data sources, right? But this is a small demo environment that I have here. And what XDR, speaking of an R, allows you to do, it allows you to drive through guided response with custom actions. And we have a lot of pre-built actions for you that you can just go and use them. For example, you could contain an incident here, and this is driven by a SANS incident response framework. So we have we eliminated the preparation and then the documentation stages. So the 4 middle stages you can see in here, which is identification, containment, eradication, and recovery. And we have multiple steps. Some of them involve automations in here. And so in this case, you could select all endpoints or just one endpoint, click execute, and this will kick off an isolation for the specific endpoint using the integration to that endpoint detection and response platform. So, what we will be doing today is we will be writing our own little workflow of an unusual response action, and then I will show you that in the moment. So what we will be doing is the action that will look like this. So here's we have like a pivot menu. So if I click, this is the malicious file hash that was involved with this incident for a malware executable that was attempted to run. You will see here that in the automate section, I have multiple different actions here, which is automate response, block, unblock, in investigate user with Duo. So all of those are custom responses that me or the members of my team has written. We also have responses with specific products. So with Secure Endpoint, which is part of the integration, you can block this file hash immediately in Secure Endpoint, and it will trigger that action in that specific security solution right from one place. So to complete the overview here, I would say that XDR is an aggregation point for all of your telemetry, for all of your context, for all of your threat intelligence, for all of your identity information about your devices, users, and sources, for all of your global intelligence, your indicators, your events, your threat feeds. And it also has a robust automation components that allows us to customize it to you to for you to meet your own process requirements. Because in the past 5 years, when we looked at automation, what we learned that every customer wants it a little bit differently. And so the flexibility of this platform is really key to make sure you are able to drive outcomes that are necessary for your organization. So in the
Gotcha.
use
So
case,
it's
yeah,
gathering all the data, all the metrics, just kind of consolidating this in my head, right? So it's gathering all the data, like you said, could be logs, net flow, streaming telemetry, SNMP
nope,
also? No, no
not that,
SNMP.
but yeah, but a lot of but we integrate with SIEMs, right? So you can
Okay.
query your SIEM for specific data if you want to. Um, there's definitely a lot of integration options available. Um, and it could be a conversation for another hour at least on what type of integrations we have. So we can have both Cisco and third party, and you will see that there are threat intelligence sources, there are cloud providers, there are firewall vendors, EDR vendors, there are SIEM vendors. You can see here some of them like Devo, Exabeam, rather ITSM platforms and ticketing platforms like Jira and ServiceNow. Another SIEM example here is Logarithm. So it is a very robust platform with a lot of capabilities in there. So yeah, would definitely go
S-
there very, very deep, but I think I'll leave it
Yes.
there.
All right. So gathering data from all these different sources, right? Kind of making sense out of it, correlating events as they come in, and then based on that, showing you, hey, this is what's happening from a security perspective in your infrastructure. And you have the option of creating these workflows to take action to address those incidents or those issues that are arising from a security perspective. And it actually can push on the secure endpoint configuration, or it can push to your FMC firewall rules, I would imagine, right? So you can also
Yep,
configure. All right. And it's SaaS based, can also be on prem,
it
or
is.
like it's SaaS.
It is SaaS based. Yes.
Okay.
With automation component, though, we have an on-prem component that can be installed as a little VM that will allow you to reach the APIs of on-premise solutions like your on-premise firewall or your identity services engine or even your network equipment. and do some actions there as well.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So it's clear to me.
Great. Do you want me to talk about the use case that we will be looking at today?
Yes, please. So tell us, please. I know you want to build a workflow from scratch, pretty much. So
Yes.
what
So we will
actually
be,
you want to accomplish?
yeah. So I want to dive deeper into the automation component, which is called XDR Automate. And it is a low to no code platform that allows us to build custom workflows. We have, with that being said, we do have a library of different workflows, which is you can find in Exchange in XDR. Those are pre-built use cases based on top customer use cases that are um, available there for you to install. And the installation is actually pretty much a one click action. But we just need to make sure that we have an integration and that check is being done for you. You see all the information about what the workflow will do, the description, what are the requirements, and if we met those requirements already. And then you just click install, and that will pretty much install. Here, I need to provide some of the information to be able to receive um, certain notifications or assign tasks to respective people. So um, and I can even skip it and then configure the workflow manually after the installation myself. So I'll probably try that, and I'll just install it with default values, and it is still going to go through. But now I need to remember to go back and change those input values within the workflow. But what we will be doing is we will be writing our own workflow so that I can hit on some of the terminology and show you um, some of the main concepts that are being used to write any of those workflows. So that potentially for any of the use case, you already know some of the techniques and the principles and what activities and the terminology, and you can address your own workflows right away. That's one of the common requests we start seeing from customers that get pretty confident with leveraging and adopting Cisco XDR and with they like the common features. And now they want to really dive deeper and get a deeper value out of it. And they're like, okay, I'm ready to write my own workflows. Show me how. So that's exactly what we are going to do today.
Nice.
Um,
Can you zoom
yep,
in a bit, please? Just like a
yep,
couple of times.
yep.
There you go.
Awesome. Is it
Yes.
better? All right.
Yes. Thank you.
So let me walk you through main terminology of the automation, and then we'll start writing the workflow. And we will use ChatGPT APIs for that matter. Today, the workflow that we will build will allow us to ask ChatGPT um, about domains that we see related to our incidents and find out if it has any information about this domain, its category, if it can, provide us additional context and insight. So we will use ChatGPT as sort of an additional threat intelligence source, an open threat intelligence source in this example. So kind of thinking a little bit out of the box and leveraging generative AI however we can, basically. That's the main goal here.
Yeah, that everybody's doing it these days, so it's all about AI. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to pick it for my example as well. So, walking through some of the terminology, obviously, when we run workflow, then we can look at the runs of those workflows in the past. Um, for workflows to function and be able to reach out to third party or Cisco platforms, like other platforms, we will need to configure targets. And again, when you leverage a workflow from Exchange, this is already done, or like any manual steps that you need to do, they're described in the documentation. So you see here, I have actually a GCP AI target as well. And I have Meraki, and I have Service Desk, and ICE and AWS and Umbrella and Firepower, and like um, and XDR targets as well. So we can invoke XDR APIs in our automation workflows to kick off investigation or kick off response action or ingest an incident, and so on. Jira, so Duo. So we've been playing around with quite a lot of different technologies, as you can see, and I did mention that we do build cool stuff. So what we are going to do right away, right here, is we are going to create new target, which is going to be called Chat GPT API. And it's a best practice to provide description, but I'm going to be lazy. We don't need any account keys because if we look at API reference for OpenAI API, we will see that it uses bearer token for authentication. So we will need to provide our API key in authorization header. So we don't actually need to provide any keys in here
Hmm.
in this configuration. So we'll just say that it's going to use HTTPS protocol. Now the API address, the yes, the API host name is this one,
Hmm.
right? So we can grab it right from the documentation in here. We don't need the port number is default. The path is we are not going to configure the path, although you can, right? So you can see here that there is a slash v1 slash common path for all API calls. So we could pre-configure it here, but I'm not going to do it at the moment. And then we just click submit. And, and
User ID.
yeah, it tells that the user ID is missing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh this page and I'm going to do it again.
ChatGPT.
And then we use HTTPS. Uh, this is going to be information.
Hmm. I don't see any user ID. Uh,
No, oh, right. So I had to change the no account keys to true.
true.
Yeah, because we don't need any account keys. So right now it is going to take it. There you go. Hey, a little bit of troubleshooting never hurts, right? You actually
No,
learn
not at
better when
all.
something does not work as expected rather than when it works as expected. So now we learned what an error means and how to troubleshoot it.
And that's how I know
I'm
it's live too.
Right, yes. So we configure the target. That would be the first step. Again, account keys is usually your username and password or your API combination of secret key and the key, right, that you need for your base 64 or OAuth or basic authentication, whatever is being used. And then again, depending on the type of the account of the product, there would be different one. There could be XDR token as example of one. AWS credentials is another account key type. So there are a lot of different account key types. Client certificate here for PX read, as you can see, basic authentication of username and password for Jira, graph credentials. So we support email credentials. We support all of those different account keys depending on what systems we are interacting with via the API. Now, variables, if you're familiar with coding, then you would know what variables is, right? Adrian, you know what
Yeah,
variables is?
yes. Yeah, I do. But then you
so,
get into local variables, global variables, right?
yes,
So you
and
get
we
into
do
all that
have them.
discussion.
Yeah, yeah. So we do have local variables that we will be using in the workflow itself that will be locally significant to our workflow, similar to a script or a function. And we do have global variables. So in this case, all I did is I configured OpenAI token as a secure
Hmm.
string. So it is secured. It is going to be hashed in any logs, any run information within the workflow, anywhere where this token is being used, it is going to be referenced in secure way. So I did already pre-configured my token. That's something that you would need to do to be able to interact with ChatGPT APIs. And then going into some more advanced topics, we have the concept of triggers. So there are different ways you can trigger the workflows. You can run them manually, obviously. You can trigger them from the menu, as I have shown you before, right? If you would um, uh, use the menu button to actually try and trigger the workflow right here, and I'll just open this and see. Right, so you can trigger the workflows right here. It is
Hmm.
called a response workflow, and we trigger it from the pivot menu like that. Right, that opens up on the observable or an endpoint. You can trigger it using a webhook or
Hmm.
schedule. So you can trigger it every 5 minutes or once a day or if weekly, whatever makes sense to you. Right. And then based on certain events, which is webhook events right here or an incoming email. So we can listen to a specific mailbox and see if there is an incoming email that would kick off a certain um, uh, automation in our environment in this case. So, as I mentioned before, and you can trigger the workflows via the APIs directly. It's a very
Hmm.
flexible platform with lots of capabilities to fit specifically into your operations, right? Into your operation floors. However, you're integrating or leveraging other solutions, we can match what's necessary there. We also have a concept of approval tasks. A lot of people, I mean, you sometimes or very often you need a man in the middle, but you don't want that man in the middle to actually do the job. You want them to be the designers of the job, but also their approvers sometimes, right? And you can embed approval tasks into your workflow. Um, and if I have time to show the art of the possible demo at the end, then we will look at an example of using an approval action in there. So that's about it. That's about it. You can also configure Git repository and your remote VM that I mentioned. That's on-prem VM that will sort of proxy your API calls to your on-prem solutions. That are also an advanced configuration tasks. But I think at that moment, what we're going to do is we are going to create a workflow.
Let's do it.
Um, Yes, let's do it. The workflow we are going to create is so-called atomic actions. So think about it as we are creating a function
Hmm.
that then we will be able to leverage in the other workflow that we will create. So you see there are different types of the workflows. The one I'm going to use right now is the blank custom workflow. The next one we will be using is creating a pivot menu workflow, but you can also create an incident response workflow so that that will be some actions that you will make as a response to an incident, and you will take in incident telemetry, incident metadata as an input for this workflow to work, and then workflow with automation rules as well. So I mentioned that you can do scheduling, right? Webhooks, other rules to kick off the workflows before. So we will name it send chat GPT uh, request. That will be the name of our workflow. Again, description is something you would do as a best practice so that you remember what this workflow was about before. One thing I need to mention is this is the workflow editor. In the middle, this is where all the activities are going to be that we are going to use. On the left-hand side, you see activities library. This is where a lot of core activities are. For example, the one that we will be using is HTTP request is the one that we will be using. But you will also see that there are a lot of pre-built activities for our products already. So it's not like for every API call you have to do this action that we're doing right now. No, we have sort of learned those APIs for you already, and we provided those activities so you can just leverage them without even knowing those APIs too much, right? So, like Meraki activities, get organizations, or update L3 outbound firewall rules, right? So, all of those actions are already there. Email security, secure endpoint, such as add file hash to a block list, get computer ID by name, get events for specific computer, isolate host. So all of those activities are already pre-configured, and not only for Cisco products, but also for third parties. So you see, I have here Crowd, CrowdStrike activities. So if my EDR is CrowdStrike, then I can use those activities in there. Um, let's see, I don't have those installed, but you can install third-party firewalls activities as well, and so on. So again, very flexible platform. Before we move any activities in here, I want to talk about the right-hand side where you see workflow properties. And the key properties here, other than the title and description that we already mentioned, are variables. So if I need any internal variables, input or output variables, I would configure them here. Here I will configure right now the output variables, which is going to be the type of string. Again, if you're familiar with any coding languages, you will be familiar with these types of like integer, boolean. We have all of them. I talked about CQ string already before, but those that we will be using. So we will have an output variable of response. So we hope to receive response from ChatGPT, right?
Hmm.
And we want to save it as an output variable in here. So we will add that. I may be forgetting something. We'll see.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the moment, this is all we will be interested in right now. So for target, I will select specify target on the workflow start, and it will be an HTTP endpoint target because this is the action we want to reuse across multiple different workflows. So think about it as a function. So when we
Hmm.
call this function, we will specify the target for that to apply to. So that's the action I need to use for my atomic action activity. And I think that's all about the properties at the moment. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's all about it at the moment. So what we will do first is we are going to create an API call to ChatGPT, right? And I'm just making up this names. Usually you don't want to leave it just HTTP request, right? Because if you look at it in 6 months from now and you have a bunch of HTTP requests in your workflow, you will be, what the hell, what I was doing here? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
So do provide meaningful names so that you know.
Help yourself for the
Yeah,
future,
help
because
yourself. Right,
yeah.
exactly. Help yourself for the future to understand what exactly you were doing in here. So what I need to provide here is a relative URL. Again, we will be using the target, so I don't need to specify api.openapi.com, but I need to provide relative URL for this API, which is going to be /v1/chat/completions. And it is going to be a host method. So if you're familiar with HTTP methods of get, put, post, delete, what's so-called root operations, right? Like create, update,
Hmm.
delete, and I forgot the R, what the R stands for.
Create. What is it? Refresh. What is?
Probably, yeah, probably refresh. Let's assume it's refresh. And so, as with any API call and any post API call, I would say you need to provide request body.
Mm-hmm.
So that will actually contain our prompt. So when you interact with ChatGPT in the user interface, you would write your message. So this is what this message is going to contain. And at this moment, I realized that I will need something in here, which is going to be an input variable, because we are going to ask ChatGPT about the domain, right? So we need to provide that domain as a required input variable, um, for this workflow to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I just added that input variable in here, and it's required true and it's domain. So the message we will have in here is going to be,
The
can you
dom.
give
Okay.
me can you give me
Okay.
the website, categories, and the resume for the domain? And what I'm going to use here, I'm going to click on this little icon next to this whole window, and it will show me it will allow me to browse my variables. And I can browse global variables or um, local variables. And what I'm going to browse is my input variable here. So I'm going to refer that input variable in my body request, because that domain is going to be different every time we run the workflow.
Yeah.
So at this moment, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up this a little bit so that I don't get some weird.
Could you could do like a JSON lint to make sure that the format is correct?
Yeah, I could, but it should be fine. It's not going to be a problem here, really. Fingers crossed. Well, we will
Mm-hmm.
find out soon anyway. But what I am going to do, it could be complaining on the columns, actually. Yeah, it is complaining on the column. So I forgot the quote. So here you go. We found the error. So hey, see, it even checks the format for you, and it tells you if you have a format error. So it's very easy to get some error checking as you go through that. So the next thing I need to add is I can select that the content type will be application JSON, and then I need to add authorization header,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to use my bearer token. And to be able to do that, I am going to refer my global variable of an OpenAI token that I created um, earlier. So at this moment, what this is going to do, it is going to create an API call. So the best practice usually is after you run an API call is to check whether it was successful or not. So for that, we are going to use a condition block. And in this condition block, what we are going to do is we are going to ask, was it successful? And forgive my typos if I have any, because English is my second language. And um, yep, I can do typos sometimes. So in the yes condition block, what we're going to do is we are going to check um, the output from the previous activity. So for that matter, you see, we didn't have it before, but now because we have previously configured activities, we can reach out to them and get some metadata. And in this case, I have the status code from this API call. So if the code is equal to 200, and we can refer back to ChatGPT APIs, to the Open API documentation to see what should be the status code. um, for the post requests, but I know it's 200. And in case it's not equal, so we'll choose in the no, we'll choose not equal 200, then something went wrong. And what we want to do is we want to complete this workflow with the failed outcome. And we want to produce an error message. So we will use an error message and an error code from the previous activity um, to provide us some information about why it failed, right? So that we can troubleshoot it later. But in the successful activity, what we want to do if we receive the response, we want to save this response as an output, right? So we created
Hmm.
an output variable, which is called response. So what we are going to do is we are going to use core activity, which is called set variable. See, like no coding involved. If you know
Drag
coding,
and
we have
drop.
Python adapter, right? So you can stick in Python code if you want to, but you don't have to. If you don't know it, it's not a big deal. You can still have value from this uh, product, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to update output variable response, and the new value will be the response from the previous activity from the HTTP request, because we do have the, the body right here. Um, you know what? The response body of this HTTP response will be in JSON format. So probably
Hmm.
you don't want to read JSON. So what we can do instead, what I am going to do instead is I'm going to use a JSON path query activity, which I'm going to stick in between. So you see, I can drag and drop it in between. And when I get that green tick, I can drop it and it adds the activity right in the middle of my workflow, and it stitches things together. So you can think about, if you're not familiar with JSON Path Query, it allows you to build a query to get to specific information within your JSON output and just get it out like very quickly, um, uh, and use it. So I'm going to provide the body of my HTTP response as an input in here, and the query I'm going to make, and I have already obviously took some time to prepare for this use case. This is the path in the JSON structure that I know I
Hmm.
will receive. So I'm looking at the choices and the message and the content that I will receive. And the the property name will be content of this activity. The type is string. So now you see it's not orange anymore. It's orange when you're missing certain configuration, but when configuration is complete, it's not orange anymore. So it's very interactive, and it shows you, can you take action on cloud resources? I'm just looking at the questions there. Yes, you can. You can, for example, block IAM user in AWS. I mean, we are working with a cloud API right now. So basically, anything that has APIs, and especially when they're reachable over the internet, then you can work with it. And even with on-prem APIs, you can. So you can certainly can take action on cloud resources. So just to complete this exercise, so now what I'm going to refer to my JSON path activity, the query that we did, and that the
The
metadata that will
content.
be produced, which is content. Yeah. So we got out of all JSON blob that we're going to receive from ChatGPT, we just got that response message. And this is what we are going to leverage. So the last step here is so certainly what I was going to do is I was going to mark this workflow as atomic. And I'm like, how come it's grayed out? Like I cannot make it atomic. That's so awkward. And then I looked at the prompt and it says, well, you first need to validate it. So that's exactly what you need to do with every of your workflows. If you import them from the Exchange or if you grab them from DevNet Code Exchange, where we have a lot of examples of community workflows as well, you need to validate it. So now here you go. You see, now I can make it atomic. And immediately it tells me, well, you need to create a group name. So I'm going to create a group chat GPT. I start typing and it tells me there are no results, but you can create it. So I can create this group. So now this workflow is ready to be used. And in the last 15 minutes that we have, we are going to create a response action and we are going to leverage this workflow in our response action. So what I need to do is I need to create that new workflow. But before I do it, you see I have the library of atomic. So if I click here, here's my atomic.
There you
It's
go.
like a function. Yeah. So this is the library of functions that I now can start using in multiple different scripts or workflows. Right. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So I'm going to create a pivot menu workflow. So I'm going to use this template, which is very convenient. And it is going to be called Ask Chat GPT about domain. And you see, it asks me, so what observable type you want it to be available for? And it is domain. So we can select specific observable types for that to be available for. And if you look in here, you will see that is already pre-configured with some input variables for me because I used a specified template for this like purpose um, um, workflows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for the chat GPT group. And you see, this is the activity I have created. I'm just going to drag and drop it in the middle. It's yellow or orange. However, your color recognition is, um, because you're required to provide a domain name. Um, the domain name will be our, Adrian, would you guess? Do I need to look for input variables or output variables here?
Um, so I mean, we already configured the input right into the function.
Yeah, exactly. So
Um,
that would be an input variable for sure. So when you click on that action in the menu, what it passes to the workflow at the back end, the type of the observable um, and the value. So what we need, the domain itself will be the value. The type
mhm,
of the observable will obviously be domain. So what we're going to provide here is the observable value as an input for our domain information.
mhm.
Now it's still orange or yellow because we need to provide the target information. So what I'm going to say is execute on this target. Let me see. Execute on this target group. Warnings. Execute on the target group. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to use the default target group and we are going to provide a criteria for that. So as you remember, I created the target, and this is the best practice, by the way, because that will allow you to make sure that your workflow can be imported and work. So if you look at targets right here, we have target groups, and there is the default target group, and all of the targets are part of this group. So this is the default group that will be available to you regardless of which environment you run this workflow in. It makes the workflows more portable. Um, and let me see. the workflow is not configured to use the target group. Edit atomic action, HTTP endpoint, specify target on the workflow start. Okay, so that's that. And when we click on this action, oh, I was trying to configure the target for this specific activity. What I need to do is I need to configure the target for this whole workflow first. So that's my bad. So for
Specified.
this workflow to work,
Okay.
yeah, I'm going to say that we are going to use um, this workflow will be executed on the default target group, which is HTTP endpoints. And then for this specific activity, what I'm going to use is I'm going to create a condition. That's the display name of the target should be equal to ChatGPT AI. So that's a target that I have created. And we are going to execute it on the first target with matching criteria. And that's what we're going to do. So the next thing I want to do is I want to try and send a message to myself. And we're not going to create that activity. It's already there. So we have an activity, send message to a person, right? So I will try to use my own email here. And I need to provide the access token, which I do have, I believe. I do have a WebEx bot available here that can send messages to me. And the message that I'm going to send is going to be the response from ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to send the response from ChatGPT to myself as a WebEx message. Now, one thing I need to double check is what is the name of my WebEx target, just to make sure that's correct. And that's the WebEx Teams target that I have in here. So what I'm going to do is the same, override target workflow group criteria. So I need to make sure that the display name of my target is equal to WebEx Teams. And I'm going to use the first one because I can have multiple. And now I'm going to click validate. Use criteria is missing. So which one is that? Use criteria. Oh,
Condition is required for select
yeah,
group.
yeah. So this is what we're going to use. So let's give it a try right now. Now that we validated it, this workflow, what I can do is I can go back to my incident and just open an incident that I have in here. And this is like completely on the fly. So I don't know what the response is going to be for this workflow, like completely at all. So I can just do. I, I'm just going to open one of the previous investigations, and let's say I have some URLs in here. So let's see if I will be able to. Nope, you see, because it's a URL and it's not a domain, I don't have that action available in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use internetbadguys.com in here as an observable,
And you
or I
can
can
run the
actually,
workflow against this, right?
Yeah, or I can, open some of my like previous page books. Let's try this one. So um there is like this domain or that domain. I mean, it really doesn't matter. All I need to do is click on this pivot menu, and it is there. Ask ChatGPT about domain. So I'm going to click it, and fingers crossed, we hope that is it going to work. So it tells us that the action was sent. Now, if we go and review the runs, we see that the action actually did not execute. And I think what I need to do is I actually need to provide it with the matching criteria for this API. So the default target, um, because I chose execute on all targets, which was apparently wrong. We do need to provide this the exact target for this. So I'm going to
Yeah, because
try once again
in the
and
default
see.
target group, you had like all of them
Yeah, I
pretty
have
much,
all of
right?
them pretty much. Yeah. And if I see, we were able to fetch the parameters, but the API call did not go through.
You got a 400 code failed.
Yeah, I got the 400 invalid request error. Invalid request error.
So 400, is that, could it be authentication or something? The key?
No, because the messages should be an array. So I'm missing the square and curly brackets in here for the messages. That's what I'm missing. So give me a moment. I'm going to add them really, really quickly in there. I'm going to edit the actions that we just made. And if I edit like that, just need to scroll down in here. Going to go back, and we are going to give it a try again. And we hope that it will allow us to execute it this time. It says we
Expected
could pass
JSON
the
failure.
JSON body of your request.
Was not valid JSON. Okay, so it actually tells you
Yeah, it
pretty good
actually
both.
tells us what the problem is. It tells us that it was not a very a valid JSON because
Because the square curly brace has to be after the quotations, right? After the quote, I mean, before, within the, no,
and curly and then curly and square and then the um, role user. Okay, give me a second. I think I know what I'm missing in here. So this is what I need to add: role user, and then the content,
content.
and then content semicolon. Can you give me this? So
Let's
if
give
we
it a
look
try.
at
Save it.
documentation, hey, looking at documentation for the APIs sometimes help. Let's see if we can figure that out.
So actually, it's saved automatically for you whenever you do a
Yes, it
change.
does. Yeah, it does save automatically for me. Um, but it does save automatically for me. But now I need to rerun this pivot menu again. And let's see if I get to run. So it is running successfully, apparently.
All right, we got a
So
success.
we got a success. Yay. And I know we're a little bit over time, but we got a success
And you
in
get the
here.
WebEx message too.
That's what I'm checking right now because I have so many different connections. I'm not sure if I'm seeing the WebEx message yet, but we see that the original um, the original one actually went the API call went through. So what we can take a look at, we can take a look at response right here. So this is the content we have received. The
Hmm.
WebEx category, Internet security, cybersecurity education, internetbitguides.com in the domain owned and operated by OpenDNS, a company that provides DNS resolution services. The website is used as a phishing test and demonstration site. If you can browse this site, it means that your computer network is not using OpenDNS phishing protection to block it. So, hey, shameless plug for Umbrella as our DNS security solution in here. Yeah, at least we can see that the API call has worked
Hmm.
and it worked successfully. I'm not seeing the WebEx message at the moment, which means that probably my token has expired or I
Expired.
need to update
Yeah.
it. Yeah, but we see that we were able in the matter of about like what 20 minutes create a response action that queries external API. And here we will see that WebEx message has failed to send, but we were able to get that information from ChatGPT. It just my token has expired. I should have checked that
404
before. The requested resource
requested
couldn't be found.
cannot be
It didn't
found.
find my email address. Anyway, I'll need to check if I'm using the right org in here. So, in
One
general, I
last
think
question.
it's
Yes,
like a
yes.
90% success
No, yeah, yes, yes. So I mean, I think
and a lot of
that's
troubleshooting.
which is, it's perfectly fine because that's exactly what happens when anyone starts to build these workflows. Question that came through is about the Terraform provider for Cisco XDR. Is there a Terraform provider for this, for
So
XDR?
you can definitely there are activities for Terraform, so you can kick off your Terraform scripts from Cisco XDR. There is no Terraform provider for SecureX XDR itself, so that you can leverage Cisco XDR like APIs and create, and there is no provider for it yet. With that being said, I'd love to hear about the use case. If you can share in the chat or with Adrian or with me directly, my email was in the demo. Then I'd love to hear about the use case and maybe that's something that we can build for you because we do build stuff on customer requests.
Yeah, because that's what we've seen. Actually, people started using Terraform specifically for, I can tell you, Catalyst Center, right? There's for Meraki, a Terraform provider. So people actually using, Terraform to configure Cisco gear through these
Yeah,
providers.
for configurations, yes, but in terms of like SOC actions, and how would you like to become like XDR actions as part of your DevOps pipeline, DevSecOps pipeline, I would love to understand the use case more. That
Well, it
would
would be
be
to create a
very
workflow.
interesting.
So what you showed in the GUI, right? What we showed in here, Oksana, if you can create it, I mean, probably to the API for sure, but you could create the
Yep.
same thing with a Terraform plan, right? If you have a Terraform provider. So
Mhm.
you would just specify in the, like in the HCL file, hey, I want
That's
all
a
these
very cool use
parameters,
case.
and within a second, you create the whole workflow without having to go through all the GUI, all the steps. So that'd be really cool. Same thing you could do, with an Ansible collection. If you have it, you create a YAML file, you have an Ansible playbook, and it creates your workflow for
Mhm.
you, instantaneously. So
All
that'd be
right.
nice.
I'm going
Something
to
to think
take it
about.
as a challenge. Yeah, I'm going to think about it definitely.
Yes, yes. And we can talk about this more because I've seen people actually embracing specifically Terraform, like I said, for other platforms, quite a bit, and they're using it because Terraform is, used for many, many years, especially in cloud environments, but they're looking at using the same tool also for Cisco. We are way over time anyway. So Oksana, thank you so much for doing this. We got it almost
Yeah.
working. I think it's just, your email that they couldn't find, or it could be the token is expired over there.
Yeah.
But we went through the whole workflow creation. We troubleshot what happened. You saw the body was actually missing that square curly bracket, right, and then the role user and the actual content. Yeah. So thank you so much for doing this. It's much clearer now. I didn't know much about XDR, but now it's clear in my head. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Any final words, Oksana, before we wrap up?
Final words. I hope I was able to show you that it's not like automation is not as scary. Right? It was a little bit of diving into API documentation, but also it's very intuitive and it's verbose, right? So it tells you what you're doing right and what you're not doing right. And I hope it will open up for you a plethora of ideas of possibilities how to make your own life easier. And my call to action would be become the automation champion within your organization and drive this change because, hey, we won't be able to catch up in cybersecurity unless we automate. And yeah, with that, I want to thank everyone for having me. I really enjoyed the session and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Oksana. Thank you so much for doing it. And if you want to come back, we'd love to have you back. You never know.
Yeah, let's talk about it afterwards.
All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. See you on the next
Bye,
one.
everyone.
Take